Hi, this is Kathy. I'm going to talk to you today about container gardens. I have several kinds that I want to talk to you about, and it's very sunny, so would you buy a used garden from this woman? I'm I have a few things. I went to my shed. I tried to find some things that, anybody would have lying around, and we're going to start here. We have my keyhole gardens, which are technically a kind of container garden. You can also call them raised bed. There are a number of things you can call them, but here's a good view of it. Um, it's big enough to act as an in-ground garden, and it will protect roots from any heat. If it gets really hot in the summer, all you have to do is add a little water and the plants will be fine. If you have a smaller space and you want to go to your, just grab something you might have on hand. Everybody's got something that resembles a bucket. Or you could use one of those children's kiddie pools, the little shallow ones. Those make really good gardens. They're almost like having a keyhole garden. The only thing you have to think about with one of those is how you're going to provide drainage for the roots in case we have a heavy rain. So, here's some things to think about. If you have a big bucket like this one, you could grow potatoes in there very easily. You would just put a little bit of dirt down towards the bottom, and you would put the eyes of the potatoes in there and let them grow. And as they grow, you would add straw or add some more dirt. And then at the end of the season, you could cut off one side and just pull out the harvest and have yourself some very nice little potatoes. If you have only a small space to work with, you could take one of these, a bucket like this, and you're going to make sure there's a hole in it, and you'll see this one has several holes. So this has good drainage already. If you don't have a bucket with holes in, what you can do is use a drill and drill a few holes in the bottom, or you can take a nail and you can put some holes in by yourself. Here is what you would do with a hole this big. You're going to have to keep the dirt from leaking out, so you can put a good-sized rock or a little chunk of whatever's laying around, and that will keep the dirt from leaching out when it rains, but it's still loose enough that water can get out from there, and if there's any excess rain, then it won't drown the plants. Make sure you clean a bucket like this before you use it for a new crop. Okay, on this kind of bucket, if you use a nail on it, it's going to split all the way across the bottom. I've done it, and it happens every time. A drill would work, but if you use a nail, it will crack, and that's really not a bad thing because you'll get plenty of drainage and you won't have a big hole where the dirt can leak out. So that's fine with that. I had a neighbor over here who was growing tomato plants in kitty litter buckets. So whatever you have on hand is going to work. Okay, if you have a tub like this, you can get really, you can plant almost anything, but definitely anything with a deep root like a tomato or something, a root crop will work. It doesn't all have to be dirt. In there you can wad up a bunch of newspapers in the bottom, or sawdust would work, and then put layers of dirt on top, just enough so that it has soil to grow in. You don't have to fill it with dirt. The keyhole gardens here started with cardboard and newspapers and all kinds of stuff, anything that I knew would decompose. And the first year that I grew anything in there, because it still had the cardboard in the bottom, my carrots were about this deep. So make sure you give the garden time to decompose and be prepared for any seeds you're putting in. The first year put crops that grow on top, and the next year you can put crops that grow below. You can use, actually, you can use a wheelbarrow. There was a book called Guerrilla Gardening, and I saw pictures of somebody who had, in the city, who had taken an abandoned car and taken the top off the car and the hood and the trunk and just filled the whole thing with dirt and planted a garden in the car. Anything that will hold dirt can become a garden. There are a couple of considerations. The one I mentioned was drainage. Now, if you only have a patio, then you can use a small container, or if you wanted to build something like this, make sure it's a little smaller than this, because unless you're a tall person, but I have trouble reaching the middle, and I think I put this about 6 or 6.5 feet across. So for me it's a little much, but if you're a tall person, that's fine, and if you're a short person, then make your garden maybe only 4 feet across, and you can still plant plenty of things in there and feed yourself and your family. Do not seal the whole thing. If you put one of them on a patio, then it's going to have a solid base like concrete on the bottom, and you don't want to seal the sides. The extra rain we get sometimes is going to have a place to get out, or you'll drown the roots of your plants. So either, if you want to have a pretty little thing and, seal the sides, if you look on Google Images, you'll see all kinds of pretty gardens. Sorry. You'll see all kinds of pretty gardens. Some are made with wine bottles or beer bottles and concrete around the edges. That's fine. And it is pretty, and it's still useful. But then leave the bottom to where the water can get out the bottom. So put that on ground. But if you put it on a patio, you have to have the sides open and loose so the water can get out one way or the other. Make sure in the heat of the summer that your plants are going to be okay and the roots won't burn. If you have a little bucket, okay, the keyhole garden, it doesn't matter. But if you have a little bucket like this one here, the roots are going to burn if it's 90 degrees, especially because it's black. You don't want to have it standing in the hot sun all afternoon if it's going to be too hot for the plant. Tomatoes need sun. They need at least 6 hours a day. So you have to be able to have it in the sun at least part of the time, but you don't want it to burn up. So you might have to move your garden, your little pot, out into the shade, away from the sun for some portion of the afternoon if it gets too hot. Also make sure that it stays watered. Some plants like peas and kale, the leaf plants, they can't handle a lot of heat, and they don't even need a whole lot of sun. So you can put those in a more shaded place, like on your porch. Just make sure it stays watered. If it gets rained on, that's fine. If it's going to be in a spot that doesn't get rain, then the watering is up to you, and you'll have to remember it day by day. Let's see. I think that's pretty much what I needed to tell you about this. They're going to need to be fertilized because there's nothing going on. My keyholes get fertilized by the compost heap, so I don't have to actually worry about them too much. But if you're going to put plants in a container, then the fertilization is also up to you. So keep that in mind too. I have my little tomato plants here. I let them out during the day so that they get used to being outside, and blowing in the breeze is really good for the plants. It keeps them from getting wimpy. So I'm letting them out as much as I can and taking them in at night. And I think in a couple more days I'll be able to put them in the ground and let them get started. I know that it may need to be covered again because it's still early spring, but I come from harder places and I know how to cover my plants. Just take if there's threat of frost, or if you think it's going to be close to frost, you might want to throw a tarp over your garden or take in your pots before it gets too cold, and then put them out the next day. So depending on how your strength factors, decide how big a pot you want to have, and that may also determine how much or how much you can plant, what kind of plant it would be, or you may want to just wait a little bit longer. But I wanted to give you some information so you can at least think about it, and maybe have yourself some good, fresh, healthy vegetables that all you have to do, go out the door, grab something, take it in the kitchen, wash it off, and eat it. It's really that simple. And everything that grows fresh tastes so much better than anything you get at the store. So I hope this gives you some good information, and I will talk to you again hopefully soon. Thank you.